Can y'all see my screen now? That's great. Okay, so yeah, just a quick intro about us. We work with employee onboarding, and the 6 C's of onboarding. It's the framework that Talya Bauer has created. That's the framework we use in order to help organizations improve their onboarding. And we also have a solution that goes with it to ensure that the onboarding actually works when you have the theory in place. So what is the 6 C's of onboarding? It's compliance, clarification, confidence, connection, culture, and checkback. And for pre-boarding, all of these are important, and I'll go through some of the key aspects in this webinar. So if you have read the book that Talya and I wrote, you will have followed Patrick on his journey from applying for a job and getting the job. So Patrick is now the person that we follow. I won't go into detail, but what I can say is that when employees have signed the offer letter, that is when they're the most excited to join. That's when they are the most nervous. That is where small things can go really long in either direction. So it's really important to give people a great experience in this phase. And we know that first impressions really matter. 86% of employees, they decide how long they will stay in a company in the first 6 months. And I think pre-boarding is really critical in order to ensure that the onboarding goes well. So I want to start by talking about the business case of investing in pre-boarding. And that's where my experience has been that it's the easiest win when it comes to most things employee experience. And the reason for that is that there's two main reasons. One, most companies don't do a really good job. So you can actually lift the whole employee experience a lot by improving the pre-boarding. Most companies mostly focus on like the basic things that needs to be in place, and later in this webinar I'll talk about what you can do to improve. But if you think about it, it's an area where it's really underinvested in most companies, and we know that employees are like a sponge. Just any information they get in the pre-boarding, they'll actually remember. Whereas in the first days is more information overflow and more the practical aspects of joining. So the second big reason for pre-boarding being an easy win is there is no internal problem with investing in pre-boarding. So your managers will love you for it. The organization will love you for it. And since there's nothing in place, you can actually do a lot of interesting things without it hurting the way the company is doing work today. So the goal here with great pre-boarding is to reduce early attrition. So that means creating a stronger connection with people so they're more likely to succeed in the role. You can ramp up people a lot faster. So if you look at an employee from there's a time where they have an investment zone and a time where they are actually returning the investment for the organization. The recruiting process is really expensive, and then it takes time until they get to productivity. By ramping up employees faster and doing a better job with pre-boarding, you can actually save a few days per new hire that joins the organization. And also, if you want a good onboarding, you should really have a good pre-boarding, because that kind of cultivates that mindset. And I'll get back to more on the practical aspects of how you can do that. So first, I want to talk a bit about nudge theory. So it's a theory that won the Nobel Prize. And I like to say that it's a theory on how to get people to do what you want them to do at the right time and create habits. So I have an article here that I can send to everyone after the webinar, but it kind of shows how you can get a manager to do what you want them to do during an onboarding process. Or to say it in another way, how to make it easier for managers to give new hires a great experience. So let's say the objective is to get your managers to call the new hire before first workday. Usually managers are busy, they forget. So if you have a checklist that is, paper-based and it's in a place somewhere in the organization, the likelihood of that manager going to that checklist, figuring out like, oh, a step is to call my new hire, it's very low likelihood of the manager doing it. There's a small chance of getting the managers to call if they receive an email from HR or someone say, hey, this is your checklist, this is one of the tasks on the checklist. But then it's even more likely to get the manager to call if they get an SMS from HR with, here's the phone number of your new hire, here are some, here's what you can do. And then they can just click a button and be on the phone. And then very likely to call, that means that they get some coaching on what to say, and just make it easier for people to do what you want them to do. So I just wanted to mention that. And in the nudge theory that we use in Preppio, there are examples from companies like Starbucks. So they send out surveys to employees before the new hire has joined the organization, asking questions like, there is trash on the floor. What would you do when you see this trash? And then like option 1 is like kick it to the side. Option 2, leave it there because someone will clean it up later. Option 3, I will pick it up. So everyone knows that it's the picking up that you will do, and most people just say that in the survey. So what happens is that because you've actually said that you will pick it up on the where you are in this situation, you're more likely to do so when you're in a stressful situation at work and then you see trash on the floor. So it's a way to nudge people to behave in a certain way. And this can be used for good things, like getting people to be better towards their new hires. But it's also very powerful. So there's a lot of interesting things about this theory that you can read about. But I really like to think of nudging people to doing things. So the second aspect that I would like to discuss is oxytocin. So it's associated with trust, relationship building. It's called the love hormone, but you can actually use this during your preboarding. So what you want to do is help new hires create a connection with you before they've entered the organization. So that's where they are. They're in the phase where they're not actually part of the organization, but you want them to feel connected to the organization. And that's going back to turnover. So if you don't feel connected to the place that you're joining, the likelihood of you not starting or maybe getting a higher salary at the place you're already at is bigger. So if you make people feel connected to their new workplace before they've joined, that reduces the chances of turnover. So how can you use that in preboarding? So one way of doing it is that tools like Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, they figured out that people prefer to see videos and pictures versus text. So what happens when you enter a work environment and you get like an ERP HR system sending you a long email? Do you feel connected to the place you're going to join or not? So when you look at tools that make people feel connected, they actually use other humans. So I think that's like a good concept to think about. So we in Preppio also, we can send automated emails, and they have not the same engagement levels as when people receive a video from the CEO of the company versus like a text. So I think that's something that you should think about during your pre-boarding, like how to embed actual humans. And of course, the best is to invite people in for social interaction, but it's not always that's feasible. Also, calling the new hires is very powerful. So if we work with a very big airline. They were hiring 5,000 people, and they had about, I think the number was 200 no-shows on day one. That meant that out of the 5,000 people signing with them, 200 just didn't show up on day one. This was a big problem. And so what they did was they started to call all the 5,000 people and had just a very, very brief conversation and just said, hey, we're looking forward having you. Do you have any questions? And the no-show rate dropped dramatically. So why does this happen? They did surveys and they learned that these employees did not feel connected. They kind of just, okay, I went through an interview process. I chose this job, but I don't really feel connected. So whenever they got another job offer, they just said, okay, this is higher salary. But then once they got that telephone call, they knew that it was people behind all these automated emails that were expecting them. So I think that's a really good analogy that you can start using in your pre-boarding, like get humans to connect with the humans that are joining your organization. So I think this is an interesting question. What goes wrong when managers onboard and how to mitigate the risks with world-class pre-boarding. So I prepared an example here that I will show. So I'm just going to stop sharing and then I'll share again. If anyone has questions, just send them in the chat so I can do that during the Q&A. So I just prepared an example of how that can look. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen here. So I'm just going to show you so you can see the Preppio solution now. It can be any solution. I'm not saying that Preppio is the only solution that can deliver great onboarding, but I think it's good for you to see practical examples of how companies are onboarding their employees today. So here's a timeline, and start date is here, and then the onboarding journey can go on. So I'm just showing you an example of how that pre-boarding welcome message could look. So in Preppio, you can SMS the new hire from your company's name. So congratulations on signing your contract, etc. And you can choose, you can say that I want this to go out 30 days before the first workday. So this SMS goes out to the new hires 30 days before day one. And when I open this, you see that on your mobile phone, you're being sent to this page, which is there's no apps or logins. You're just being sent to this page where the first thing you'll see is just some text and then it's a video. So here we have companies who are they have their CEO or their teammates sending a welcome video to the new hire. And that's the first thing you'll receive from the company once you've signed the contract. And I can't emphasize enough why that is important. And the thing is that when most companies have designed their onboarding journey, they thought about themselves. So they thought, okay, what do I need my department need in order to get this new hire onboarded. So, we need the paperwork signed, we need, a lot of compliance things basically. But very few companies have thought about the employee perspective. So when you sign a contract, you're really nervous, you don't know what to expect. There's all of these feelings, and if you think of it from an employee perspective, it's much better to start with a nice welcome. Then you can start the more like paper-based, the more like the practical aspects of joining. So here you can send out information to people with videos. This is your manager, a picture of the manager, add us on LinkedIn, add us on social, make them feel like they're part of the company or understand the culture in your organization. So for example, you can send out, you can get 2 people in the organization to create a podcast about how it is working in your organization and send it to the new hire before they've joined. So the impact that has on me as a new hire, when I've heard like a 2-hour podcast between 2 people in the company before day one, versus just entering the first day without really knowing people in the organization. So these are more like the practical things you can do to create that connection. You also have surveys that you can send out to new hires. This is like the next level if you really want to create an amazing onboarding process. So you can send out a survey about like, what's your favorite lunch? And then that information can be sent to the manager to build a great first day experience for the new hire. There's also tools in the market like diversity icebreakers and Myers-Briggs and all of these other tools that some companies are using in their recruiting process. But wouldn't it be amazing if the manager just got a survey from the new hire saying that, my communication style is this, and this, and the manager can then try to onboard the new hires based on what their needs are. So I know this is outside the lines of feasibility for some organizations, but for others, I think this is something that really can set your onboarding program apart. So that's just some practical aspects towards the employee. But then I said, like, what about managers? What can you mitigate the risks? And there's 2 things to that. Number one, if you can get employees to get a lot of the information about the company from the company, we know from experience that managers are really good at like the practical aspects of onboarding. So you can kind of remove that. So you can create a consistent onboarding experience across the whole organization without leaning too much on the individual managers, because they'll, at the end of the day, they'll do some different onboarding. So it will be a varying onboarding experience if you just leave everything to the manager. So some things should go from the organization to the new hire. The other thing is you should also nudge and coach the managers. So there's multiple ways of doing that. So for example, a lot of companies have asked their managers to create a plan for the new hire. That is really important when it comes to clarification. So a plan for a new hire is great, but it's even better if you proactively send out a plan with some ideas of how that can actually look for this employee. So in Preppio, you can send out messages in Microsoft Teams to managers 10 days before the new hire starts with that information. You can send out messages about different things they need to do before day one. So when the new hire shows up, the manager has sort of been nudged into giving that new hire a great onboarding experience. So I will stop sharing the screen there. And I will go on. So here I will. Okay, so I have a lot of pre-boarding best practices. I'll send that list to you as well, so you can sort of have that practical aspect of what can we do. So I think it's the compliance aspect is important, of course, but then sending information on what to expect, clarification is really important, and also do that as a nudge to the manager. You can automate some of the communications on manager's behalf if you have an advanced onboarding solution. I think that's also important. If you're using tools like Microsoft Teams, Workplace, Slack, it's quite easy to get new hires to introduce themselves when joining, creating groups like that. So there's lots of these. I'll send them over to you after this webinar, so you'll have that as well. So any questions, anything you would like to know from us? Well, yeah, please go ahead.
Yes. Hi, my name is May. I just wanted to ask, besides the nudges and messages to managers to remind them that they have a new hire and so on, how could we help them to embed, like focus more on not on task but connection focused? Let's say how to shift this mindset, because it's usually like if they have a lot of business operations and they need someone to be hands-on right after they start, how can we shift this task to connection focus?
I think that's a good question. First of all, it's not easy. It's not, someone that has done a job for a certain, they have their ways, right? So it's really hard to just say how to shift it. But I think what you definitely can do is to use that proactive nudges. So let's say I'm a manager, and then in Microsoft Teams, I'll get a message from you or a system that says, hey, in 10 days, your new hire starts. It is important to build connection early on. And here is the phone number of that new hire. Here are some talking points. Because if I'm a manager and I just get the phone number and call the new hire from someone, I'm okay, maybe I'll do it. But if you also explain me why that is important and also coach me on 3 topics that I can discuss, it makes my life easier. And then if you like really want to create like the golden standard, you have also gotten the employee to send the manager some information about their expectations and how their communication style is, etc. So the manager can actually discuss, hey, I saw that you like to do it this way. Is it okay for you if we build your new hire onboarding program, this way? And then that conversation, if the managers can do that, that would be, that's the golden standard. But then I think just starting the communications, because we wrote it in the book. There was a study on managers having lunch with their new hires on day 1 increased the likelihood of onboarding success by I don't remember the numbers, but it was like important or a big difference. So what does that mean is coaching the new hires on the importance of it, because they just forget. If you ask the manager, oh, I just forgot. So I think it's maybe just reminding them and nudging them. So
Great. Thank you.
No, not anyone, but you can send, so I'm answering Annevi's question. You can send messages to new hires, but you can sort of send it from the manager's behalf, although the communication comes from the company. So you can kind of automate some of that to the new hires without the managers needing to do much work. That being said, the most powerful thing is to kind of get the managers to actually do a little bit, but you need to make that lifting as least, make it as easy as possible. Yeah. Checkbacks and follow through. So I think that's really important as well. I think that is how can I say it? I think if you want to do the nudges for check back, there is some different strategies. So one is actually using the nudge for compliance, where you actually say to a manager, hey, you have gotten this new hire, I will help you, I will guide you through this new onboarding, but are you willing to invest, this amount of time? I wouldn't frame it that way, but then you ask the manager if they, you need to set aside 3 days to do it, or 3 sessions to do this. And then the manager clicks, yes, I will do that. So that's nudge theory right there, because they've said yes and they want to be aligned with what they said earlier. And then I think nudging by just, why should the manager try to use Excel sheets to try to figure out who that employee should meet in the first weeks, when they could just get calendar invites for that new hire directly from a system? So you can automate a lot of this for them and kind of nudge them to just book in those meetings with the new hires early on, rather than relying on them looking at the checklist. Oh, book in the meetings with the new hire, and then perhaps forgetting it or doing it too late. I think I answered those questions. So we're also at the 30-minute mark. Thank you all for joining the webinar. I'll stay around for some more time if anyone has questions. I'll send the recording, I'll send the presentation and the best practices to all of you. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks. I would like to ask you a question, if possible.
Sure.
Yeah, I just want to know a little bit more about how do you bring the 6 Cs in your tool? Like, because of course, not just in sending messages, it's one practical aspect, let's say, but I'm not sure if you bring it in another practical aspects.
Yeah, we use them in all of the different communications. So I don't know if you have downloaded the Preppio 6 Cs and the journey that the new hire has, where we just recommend the different things to do during the journey. And for example, let's say take clarification. So then you would send out a message from the solution to a manager with, this is what you need to do in order to ensure the employee knows what to expect. So that goes back to that phone call. The phone call is just to establish the connection, but then what you actually want the manager to do is to do clarification in that call, right? So we have over 200 different templates and best practices in the solution. So we've thought about like what are the best ways of creating connection, doing clarification, building confidence, etc. So confidence could be like, hey, we look forward to seeing you, and this is another new hire that joined, so that will build confidence in the new hire that, okay, I chose the right place to join because I got this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So you give more like tips and recommendations, and always like adapted to every business and team and department and so on, right?
Yeah, so I think the 6 Cs is more on the content side of Preppio. The tool itself is more like the communications and getting like these things to work seamlessly.
Okay, more like a communication path and make like managers easier, like lives easier. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's it, because so when Talya decided to build Preppio with us, she said, I've been studying this for over 25 years. I've been talking to all of these big organizations about the 6 Cs of onboarding, but then in practice they all tell me that it's impossible for us to get managers to do what we want them to do, and all the tools in the market were very, let's say, compliance based. So we said, look, let's build a tool that makes it easy to nudge and coach and drive communications to ensure that these 6 C's are followed through, and also